Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? Welcome to the DLLS Mavs Emergency Podcast presented by Indeed. I'm your man, Kevin Gray, alongside our national NBA insider, Marc Stein. You can always dial up the Stein line at the Stein line. We've got some news to get to as Luka Doncic is going to be missing at least the next week with a right wrist sprain. The team announcing today, our own Marc Stein breaking that news earlier today, as Luka Doncic and this team are on a current three-game winning streak, will now be without its superstar for at least the next week. That's how we start here with our national NBA insider, Marc Stein. Marc, really appreciate you joining us here on this emergency podcast. What can you tell us when it comes to Luka Doncic and this injury that he sustained, it appears, during the New Orleans Pelicans game?
Yeah, Super Kev. Basically what happened was Tuesday night, it was actually, our teammate, Tim Cato, pulled me aside and Tim got some information. I was actually a fairly late arrival to the game for some personal commitments. And Tim whispered to me that, hey, Luka got some post-game x-rays. And then after the game, the mystery was soon revealed when Luka Doncic showed up at his press conference with a wrap on his right wrist. But obviously Luka's going to be asked about it if he shows up for a press conference with something so visible, and he expressed the hope that it was nothing serious. It's my understanding that on Wednesday, the pain worsened. Further testing was required. You saw in the Mavericks release today, they talked about an MRI. He needed to get an MRI because the initial x-rays, I'm told, were fine and revealed nothing. And I think Tuesday night, the Mavericks thought that this was no major dilemma. But Luka couldn't practice Wednesday. Obviously, practicing today was off the table. And I reported, I can't remember exactly what time it was, but definitely in the morning before practice started, that right wrist injury, Luka was definitely going to be out tomorrow night at Denver, Friday night at Denver. And then the Mavericks said, we're actually going to hold him out for a week, which, when you look at the schedule, I'm sure everyone in our office has already peeked ahead at this. Not only does that mean no 3-game road trip, which starts in Denver, has stops in Miami and Atlanta, but next Wednesday, which is less than a week from now, the Mavs' old friend Jalen Brunson is in town. And one way or another, it seems that whenever there's a Knicks-Mavs game on the calendar, it seems that one of the two protagonists that we most want to see is missing. And Luka, if they stick to this timetable of reevaluating in a week is Thanksgiving. So he's not going to be available for that Knicks game.
Injuries are never a good time to have any, for sure, but especially for this group who had just come off a 4-game losing streak, had won their last 3. It felt like, Marc, things were starting to get rolling for this team, playing much better. Luka starting to get his legs under. In fact, in that game against the Pelicans, had 3 steals and felt like things were starting to come along. And this team overall has dealt with injuries, whether it's Luka, whether it's PJ Washington and others. It feels like they can't get any kind of real traction based off of what they're trying to achieve this year right now.
Well, look, I'm not going to try to BS anybody and say silver lining. There's no silver lining when your MVP candidate gets injured. But in this case, as long as this is not a serious thing, as long as a week or maybe it goes a little bit longer, but as long as this is not some wrist injury that can linger, as long as this is something that can be treated in the space of a week or a week plus, stepping away, staying behind does at least give Luka Doncic the chance to focus on, getting his legs right, because he has been playing with some sort of leg issue since the day before media day when he got kicked in the calf in a pickup game. And it has just been one thing after another. I think he's got to be approaching 4 or 5 injuries already. And as mentioned, we're not yet at Thanksgiving. So initially, Luka tries to play through everything. So initially, my understanding is he wanted to go on this trip, even if playing against Denver was going to be ruled out. And that was the first thing ruled out. He was not going to play Friday at Denver. And look, we don't know if Nikola Jokic is going to play in that game either. Nikola Jokic has been away from the Nuggets for the past 3 games due to personal reasons. And I think I saw reporting out of Denver today that he he has not yet practiced. So it's hard to see Jokic just coming back tomorrow night. But you know that Luka wanted to play in that game because he's never wants to miss a game against his buddy Jokic. But my sense is he wanted to go on the trip in hopes of at some point in those 3 games we would see him. I think this is much better to just say, hey, you are out a week. And now I'm told he will not travel. He will stay behind in Dallas to focus on wrist rehab, legs rehab, and he can really just spend a week, quote, getting right. And so, again, silver lining, no, you're not. You cannot go as far as silver lining because it's just been one thing after another. But the Mavericks will certainly be hoping that this week away does Luka some good in some other areas of his body while he's dealing with the wrist issue. And then from the team perspective, I mean, they did just go to Oklahoma City and win a game without him. So, I don't think anybody is predicting a 3-0 trip, but they shouldn't go 0-3 either the way they've been playing these last few games.
This emergency pod is brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ALLCITY. That's Indeed.com/ALLCITY. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And for the Mavericks, Mark, 7 of their next 9 games on the road, a team above 500 at 8-7 as we look forward, obviously, with Luka Doncic. And
I'm actually happy about that because that means more time with my favorite guys who cover my favorite team, right?
Every single day. That's right. For the DLLS Mavs crew.
And it's favorite guys covering your favorite team. I misspoke there. I have no favorite team.
You do not.
In the NBA.
You are neutral.
We want to talk Premier League, Big West Conference basketball, etc. I can definitely come up with some favorites. I was trying to quote your famous line, and of course I screwed it up.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And that's why I don't do your job, because you do a whole lot of reporting that none of us can do, and you were the man for the job. That's for sure. And look, 7 of their next 9 games on the road, and for hopefully the quick return as quickly as possible, I should say, for Doncic. Opportunities for Quentin Grimes, Jaden Hardy to step in. Jason Kidd speaking today at practice about the opportunities that Jaden Hardy and Quentin Grimes are going to have. Grimes, for example, at least double-digit points in 3 out of his last 4 games. It appears that he and Jaden Hardy's role will get that much more increased with the continued absence of Luka Doncic at this point.
I think we owe a chapeau to Mr. Grimes because, when Jason Kidd went off on this team, Grimes was mentioned in that press conference, and I'm sure it was not the most comfortable thing in the world, but he has responded to it fantastically well. And I've been talking to some people, and one of the things that I was told is that, J Kidd is that forceful behind the scenes as well. It wasn't like the criticisms that he levied both about his team and Grimes in that instance. It's not like that was anything that Grimes or other guys on this roster haven't heard. But I really like the way Grimes he got a DNP after that, didn't say a peep, and has played really good basketball since then, seized his opportunity. And that's the other thing. I think from a coaching perspective, J Kidd said what he said, and in the media we focus on that. 2 games later, he put Grimes in the starting lineup. So I think, he showed that it was nothing to let linger or worry about. And like I said, Grimes has been fantastic ever since. And look, Spencer Dinwiddie too. I mean, the Mavs don't win that game in OKC if Spencer Dinwiddie doesn't come in as a pinch hitter in the 3rd quarter and hit 2 big threes. So, we've talked a zillion times, guard depth is something this team has. Now, obviously there's no Exum either, but guard is the one spot they should be able to withstand an injury. And let's also not bury the headline here. This all starts with Kyrie Irving, who has been fantastic. And he has he has been the steadiest Maverick of them all. And he's been sensational when Luka's out. And can't say enough about how well Kyrie Irving has started this season. I should know off the top of my head what year this is for him. He was drafted in 2011. I'm hesitant to do the math on live air because I'll probably screw it up.
the year 13-14 range. We'll go year 13 as far as
he has started this season sensationally. I mean, he has been the steadying force for this team. And so, at full strength, I think the Mavericks would have looked ahead to this road trip and said, we should win at least 2. Can they steal 2 even shorthanded? Now, they might see a Denver team that doesn't have Jokic. We just don't know yet about Jokic's status. But this is a team that's feeling good about itself right now because they bounced back from that Utah game so well. So, I think they'll back themselves to go out and be good in all 3 of these games. Now, let's see if they can prove me right.
Yeah, let's see if they can. Jaden Hardy, Quentin Grimes, all these guys. Kyrie Irving going to be shouldering the offensive load for this team as the 32-year-old who can do that and has done it in his career. He will be the focal point of this offense, but other guys will have to play their roles extremely well to try and make sure, not necessarily make up for the absence of Doncic, but to do what they can in their roles given to be able to perform for this team. Any other news and notes when it comes to this injury for Doncic moving forward, as he's going to be reevaluated in 1 week based off of what we know now as we look forward to what was going on?
I think the biggest thing is that he's going to stay behind and just live in the treatment room, basically address, he obviously the wrist thing obviously becomes the priority issue now, but presumably he can still do a lot of other things besides just work on the wrist. So he's going to get a week here to just focus on his body. And, let's see if there's a benefit for him on the other side of that. Obviously, the Mavericks would rather have him than not have him. I mean, do we really need to say that? But
right, exactly.
Again, this is a team that's feeling pretty good about itself. They just went to OKC and won a game without him. So, let's see what they can get done. Miami, I mean, it's a tough little trip.
Sure.
Because Denver, this is such a weird schedule. You're going to Denver twice. Again, I keep using Thanksgiving as this marker. You're going to Denver. You're making your 2 in-season Denver visits before Thanksgiving. Does that help? I mean, they were there 2 weeks ago. I don't really think you could say they're used to the altitude, but at least it won't be a total shock to the system. But then you got to fly a long way from Denver, and you're going to hear this whine about Denver for me all the time. Just that ride from the arena to the airport, that's like as long as the flight because that airport is so far out. Yeah. But Atlanta's playing better. They're much younger and interesting and athletic, and they got all kinds of switchy guys. So Miami, Atlanta will not be. That is not a layup back-to-back at all. I mean, that's a tough back-to-back. And then you got to come home and see the Knicks and see Brunson. So
That's right. We will see how that will all turn out over the next week. That is the breaking news. Luka Doncic suffering a right wrist sprain that will keep him out at least a week, as broken by our very own Marc Stein. You can always dial up the Stein line at the Stein line on X for our national NBA insider for the ALLCITY network and for us here at DLLS Sports. Mark, as always, we appreciate the time, man, and look forward to the rest of your coverage throughout the course of this week. And
see you guys tomorrow night Are we in the lounge Friday night? Late Friday in the lounge? Is it us?
We'll be at one of either the podcast or lounge so that we make sure you're comfortable and good to go to watch the Mavericks take on the Denver Nuggets.
Right, see you tomorrow night.
We appreciate you joining us here on the DLLS Mavs Emergency Podcast presented by Indeed. Don't forget to tune in for our pregame show at 8:30 p.m. on Friday night as the Mavericks take on the Denver Nuggets. For Mark, I'm Kevin. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.